And moving on with my Saturday Superlative series, we now have come to the running backs. And I'm going to start with an unspectacular guy, sort of in the Muhammad Ibrahim mold, but a guy who really got it done where they needed him. And a guy who also provides leadership to his team. And that's Larry Roundtree III of Missouri, 27 carries, 185 yards, 3 touchdowns. Super tough. Now, a guy who did have a spectacular day is Jerick Broussard. 25 carries, 300, not 200, not 100, 301 yards. And I first noticed him earlier this year, but he's an absolute beast. And Colorado is going to have him for at least one more year and maybe two, but he's trouble. Notre Dame's very balanced. They have a quarterback who can throw the ball and run the ball, but he has a couple of running backs, and 2 of them had great days. Both Kyron Williams and Chris Tyree were great. Chris Tyree only had 6 carries, but got 109 yards out of it and a touchdown. He's a freshman. And then Williams is just a sophomore. Kyron Williams had 20 carries for 110 yards and also had 3 catches for 33 yards. Both are well-rounded complete backs. Speaking of complete backs, a guy that a lot of people liked when he transferred from Oklahoma to Ohio State was Trey Sermon, but he got sort of lost in the sauce. Well, he got himself out of the sauce, at least for a week, and had a very good day. 10 catches. Not 10 catches. Could have had 10 if they'd thrown the ball. 10 rushes for 112 yards and a touchdown. But he is a very fine pass catcher as well. Speaking of guys that, this guy hasn't been lost. But a guy that I think we're going to talk about much more next year, I love him already, is Isaiah Spiller at Texas A&M. Terrific. Size, speed, change of direction. Very polished for a guy who's only a sophomore. Holds up in the pass game as a pass protector. Don't throw him the ball a bunch, but he can catch it. I'm thinking next year he'll probably get more balls thrown his way. But he had 2 catches for 17 yards, but he did most of his damage on the ground, as he usually does. 20 carries for 120 yards, and, like I said, a guy they don't really have any answers for. He can do a little bit of everything. Speaking of complete backs, Louisiana, and once again, a guy that if he just got more touches, he'd have bigger numbers. But Elijah Mitchell is going to play on Sundays as well. Probably was a third down back. He can catch the ball. He can be a factor in the turn game. But even though he only had 12 receptions, not receptions, but rushes, he had 95 yards. Also 2 receptions and 17 yards. And he's, like I said, trouble. Stanford may have found their next Stanford back, the guy that gets the ball 30 times or 30 touches a game kind of guy. He did have 31 carries in Lisa's most recent game for 138 yards. That's Austin Jones. 2 touchdowns, also 3 catches for another 28 yards. He's not quite the dynamic guy in space that McCaffrey is, but he has some toughness. He can catch the ball, and once again, because of Stanford's offense, he's asked to do a little bit of everything. I talked earlier about some of these young cats. I have to mention another freshman running back. So Ty Jordan had to step up because Utah's had some injuries at the position, and they've hit on, once again, looks like they're running back of the future. 27 carries for 167 yards, 1 touchdown, also a couple of catches for 22 yards, and like I said, it looks like they found their next great running back. Well, a guy who's not someone's next great running back, except maybe an NFL team, is Naji Harris, who has been, a beast. Obviously, sort of a beast in training while he waited, and now has become, the last couple of years, just a beast. But 21 carries, 145 yards, 3 touchdowns, also a couple of catches for 3 yards. But, they didn't need him to do a lot in the pass game. And then I have to mention, though it was in a defeat, BYU's Tyler Algiere, who, once again, is one of my favorite running backs. And I think a guy we'll be talking about much more next year. But he had, even against a very tough and very active Chanticleer's defense, he managed to get 13 carries for 106 yards. Should have probably had more carries. And they probably should have thrown the ball to him more. Only 1 catch, but for 12 yards. He's, once again, a guy who can do a little bit of everything. I think he had 1 fumble, but he's a converted linebacker. Was a walk-on linebacker at one point. But he's got the goods. Those are my superlatives on this, looking back at Saturday at the running backs.